Hey everybody, welcome to day 23 of Get Out of the Rat Race RUT. I'm Beth Campbell, career mindset coach and mentor, former corporate captive, now helping you find fulfillment. If you need some guidance in finding your career or life happy place, send me a message or go to bethannecampbell.com/coachme. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to everybody who has been here in the past or has watched the replay over on YouTube or here on Facebook. I appreciate you so much. If you're watching live, let me know you're here in the comments. And if you're watching on replay, give me a hashtag replay. And of course, let me know if you have any questions or feedback so I can address it on a future episode. I'm trying to, I gotta slow myself down. I'm a fast talker. Okay. So today we're going to talk about one-on-one meetings, which hopefully, if you have spent any time in the corporate professional world, you know what I'm talking about. You either love them or you hate them, and everybody has a different preference as to how they're done. And with one-on-ones, we have two different perspectives, right? Depending on whether you're giving a one-on-one or receiving. So this is going to be the world according to Beth, based on my experience. So take it with a grain of salt and let me know what you do differently. I would love to hear from you about your one-on-one experience. So the term one-on-one is pretty broad, but here I'm talking about the standard one-on-one employee plus boss meeting that happens at some regular cadence on a traditional job. It could be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever, just depends. It's where the manager and the employee meet in private, talk about whatever needs to be talked about amongst the two, and we'll cover some of that shortly. And it's an opportunity for both of you to have a private place to go over the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly of what's going on, mostly with the employee and their work experience, but sometimes other stuff too. So one-on-ones for me are about the employee, but any manager worth shit would also want to get feedback, of course, from your employees to help them, the manager, improve, right? So it's kind of a two-way street, but sort of focused on the employee. So I had a new team member once, and he told me that his last job, he didn't have one-on-ones with his boss because his boss checked in with him every day. So I guess the boss didn't think he needed to have a formal one-on-one because he would walk to the employee's desk every morning and they would catch up. And I love that they interacted like that. I mean, what a great manager to check in every day. It's not always easy or even possible to do that, I can say from my experience. But I am of the opinion, even if you cohabitate in an office and or you see and talk to each other frequently, the one-on-one meeting can still be so valuable because either party might need to talk about something that's not maybe comfortable or they don't want other people to necessarily hear. So like performance, right? We talked about performance in a previous episode. Maybe they're having a challenge in their assignments. Or maybe there's some not so great company news that the manager has to deliver and, is better done in a private room. Maybe the employee wants to vent and doesn't want everybody to hear. I mean, there's a lot of things, whatever the case. I think having a regular one-on-one so that we can completely be open and transparent in a safe, private space is a good idea, even if you communicate openly and often. Okay, so how often should one have one-on-one meetings? The answer is, it depends, right? You notice a trend that goes through all of these Facebook Lives, which is it depends because it might be different for each employee because everybody's different. And this is something that I learned over my 14 years as a manager. And it's one of the biggest lessons, right? Everybody is different. So at my last job, I decided to ask my team what they preferred. So before then, I just would set one-on-ones up at some cadence. But I'd ask them what they preferred. I wanted at least monthly with each of them, but I let them tell me, do you want more frequently than monthly? And I had about a third of them choose monthly. They were fine with that. About a third of them said twice a month. So we had like bi-weekly meetings. And about a third of them opted for weekly, which did surprise me a little bit. And those decisions were based on a number of factors, and that included what were they working on at the time, personal preference, schedule availability, right? Not everybody can do every week. And probably for some, a comfort level in having one-on-ones because not everybody loves them either. So if you're a manager, Ask your team what they prefer. It never occurred to me in 12 of my 14 years to even do that. It just set them up. So the other thing that I've seen come up when I've been talking to other managers is who should schedule the one-on-one meetings. And I'm frankly surprised that this is even asked, because I just assumed it was the manager's responsibility to schedule those calls. For me, that's just basic 101, mostly because it's my job as a leader to do the things that ensure my team's success, and feedback and transparency being one of them, so hence the one-on-ones. And this is just my opinion, when you ask your team to schedule one-on-ones, it's kind of like saying, like, hit me up if you need me, versus if I schedule them, which is more, you're important, so let me make sure that we get time on the calendar. It's just a different tone to it. And some of you may disagree, and that's okay. But this is how I learned, and this is how I lead. But it's not the only way. So again, let me know, your thoughts on that. So speaking of importance, in my 23 years of experience, 14 of them, I was a manager in environments that were just absolutely chaotic. One-on-one meetings seem to be the first calendar items sacrificed if there's a conflict. And as an employee, I saw this happen a lot with my bosses, right? And I was guilty of this also in my first couple of years as a manager. I was often double, triple, or even quadruple overbooked on my calendar every day, all day. And it was really hard to keep up. So if somebody scheduled what I would consider an important meeting that was scheduled over a one-on-one that I had with one of my team members, I would cancel the one-on-one with my team member and cancel versus reschedule, because it was just hard to reschedule because my calendar was kind of insane, etc. And then around that time, my team members, several of them gave me some really important feedback about that. Now, I always ask for their feedback for me, every one-on-one, what can I do better, and at year-end performance reviews. One year, I had like 3 or 4 of them tell me that they didn't like it when I canceled one-on-ones. They kind of called me out on it. And they indicated they thought one-on-ones were valuable and important. And when I canceled them, and canceled them frequently, it just didn't seem like I found them important, or found the team members important. And that was a huge eye-opener for me. Like, I just had not realized how valuable they found our meetings. So from then on, I did everything in my power to not cancel a one-on-one. It was a great lesson for me about keeping boundaries. So when meetings would come up that overlapped my one-on-one calls, my first response was I would just decline them. I would just, what do you call it in Outlook? You can decline or decline with notes, right? You can, I can't remember how they call it, but there's most email in corporate has some ability you can decline, but you can put a reason, right? And I would say, I assume I'm optional for this meeting because it was scheduled over block time. And by the way, outside of one-on-ones, for those of you folks in corporate, take control of your calendar in this way, because you probably, if you're one of those triple, quadruple overbooked kind of people, you probably get frustrated as to which one do I go to, right? My going in is, if somebody schedules over an existing meeting, I'm not critical, because if I'm critical, you'll either find a time on my calendar that's open, or you'll have a conversation with me and say, hey, I see you're blocked, but I need you to go to this meeting, right? So just a tip for you for calendar maintenance. So usually when I would do this response, it would work, and honestly probably spared me a lot of unnecessary meetings because I just would decline them. And then when I did have to attend, something maybe did come up that I couldn't avoid, I would just make sure to really try hard to reschedule the one-on-one versus cancel. And if that meant shuffling some things around or doing it a little bit later, a little bit earlier, then we would do that. So whether you're a manager or an employee, it's a good idea to come prepared to your one-on-one. And when I was a manager, I was always adamant, this is the team member's time, right? We talk about whatever the hell they wanted to talk about. Sometimes things were just going well and maybe nobody had an agenda. And so for those times, I had a kind of a stock list of items that I would go over if we needed to. So that would include things like following up on whatever was previously discussed. What's working well, and what accomplishments are they proud of since we last spoke? What challenges are they having, and how can I help? We might review their goals. We might talk about feedback from others. Sometimes people get feedback from, like, well, good and bad. They probably don't tell me the bad stuff, but good and bad feedback, like an email somebody might send to them about it, like from a client or a business partner or something, about how great they're doing, and they don't even pass that on to me. I love that stuff because I'll use that in performance reviews. So I might ask them about if they had any feedback from other people. Might talk about what's in the hopper, like upcoming assignments, or are there any absences or vacations coming up, company announcements, that kind of thing. Of course, promotions, merit raises, performance reviews, career path planning, that kind of stuff, the normal manager stuff. And I would end every meeting with, what can I do better? What do you need from me? Sincerely, right? It's not just a token question. So a lot of times team members will just vent. I know I did, and that's okay. The goal is make their life easier. So if they're venting, if you're a manager, see if you can help with whatever it is that causes them to vent. And as an employee, when I was having my one-on-ones with my boss, I would come in with a similar list. Follow-ups, what am I working on, accomplishments, challenges, asking about what's coming up, questions I had about anything, and of course, feedback as to how I can do better. So there are, if you go out into the internet world, there are tons of great one-on-one questions. If you get stuck, just Google it. There's just a lot of really good stuff. I've just touched the surface on some really good thought-provoking questions that you can ask at a one-on-one, whether you're a manager or whether you're the team member. So, okay, so that's a little bit about one-on-ones from my perspective. I would love to hear from you about like your best and worst one-on-one experiences and any tips that you have, because this is kind of like an open book for me. Like I know what I do and what I did, but I know a lot of people do things differently, and I do appreciate when they give feedback. For most managers, especially if you're a new manager, they don't really teach one-on-one, one-on-one a lot, in fact, at all. So most of us go into it kind of blind. And again, everybody's different. So you probably have gotten some feedback from your folks. And again, let me know how that went and what you did differently. Okay, I'm going to the comments and feedback today. And my friend Stephanie Bannock is here. Standardize, it feels like they're in trouble. Yeah, I agree, right? That's a great point, Stephanie. Stephanie says it standardizes it. No one feels like they're in trouble or getting called out. Like if you don't have normal one-on-ones and then suddenly you have to pull somebody into a room, it's a little awkward. Like there could be some talk, right? So that's a great point, that it's just a one-on-one. Everybody has them, and everybody has them frequently. I love that. I love that perspective. Stephanie says, I love how organized you were as a manager, and now as your own boss, you bring fun and personality to professionalism. Thank you so much. I always do try to have fun, and I try to, bring laughter and levity into it. Even when I was I was only bitter within. I mean, I was complaining out loud a lot too, but, and probably complaining maybe to not the right people, but I always tried to keep a little bit of a sense of humor about it. So, these things are things that I learned over many, many years. So it's not like, day one, I was like, all right, here's my list. I mean, it took me, I didn't provide I would always in the meeting notice, I would include my list of things that we might want to talk about, just in case we forget. And so they would know, they would have a reference every time they opened the meeting. But I didn't do that until, maybe 4 or 5 years in. I was just winging it like everybody else, just trying to figure out, oh, what? You don't want me to cancel one-on-ones? What? It makes you feel like you're not important. Hello, duh. So anyways, all right. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate your input as always. Tomorrow, we're going to get a little deep. Because we're going to talk about what happens if you don't make a change in your life or career. What happens if you don't make a change? Are you okay with that? Are you okay continuing on? We'll go getting a little deep there tomorrow. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn if you're not already. And thank you for joining Get Out of the Rat Race Rut. You're here because you are a freaking badass. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I shall see you tomorrow.